Good evening, everybody. Welcome to season 10, episode 7, overall 502 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, along with their great selection of all-electric vehicles and Cadillac products as well. You can call the dealership at 519-824-0210 and tell them Chris Pomay sent you, or you can email them at info@barrycullen.com. Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership has been family run and operated here in the city of Guelph since 1969, and yours truly has been a customer of Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership for the last 25 years. And I want to say thank you to Mark Cullen for sponsoring this show 2.5 years ago. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show is also brought to you by Wellington Brewery at 950 Woodlawn Road West in Guelph, Ontario. Check out their website, wellingtonbrewery.ca. Try a Welly on, and please remember to drink responsibly. Wellington Brewery is celebrating their 40th year as one of Canada's local craft breweries. So please go out and check out Wellington Brewery, support local Canadian business. And I want to say thank you to Jackie Hanna for the last 4 months for sponsoring this show as well. I hope everyone's doing well on this Thursday, February 27th, 2025. This is my fifth show in the last 4 days, and I'm excited to have my guest on tonight. This is his second appearance on our show, and he is a longtime voice of the Detroit Lions. For the last 19 years. I believe this will be his 20th year coming up in 2025. His name is Dan Miller. He is the voice of the Detroit Lions on 97.1 The Ticket in Detroit, and he's also the sports director with Fox 2 in Detroit. And Dan's going to come on to it. Dan's going to come on shortly, and we're going to talk a little bit about the 2024 Detroit Lions and where they go from here in 2025. Good evening, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing well, Chris. How you doing?
Good. Hey, I want to say thank you so much for giving us a little bit of your time out of your busy schedule tonight.
No problem. Good to be here.
Hey, I was going to ask you, Dan, you've been in Detroit a long time, and I'm 52 years old. Have never recalled all four Detroit teams being this competitive and good at the same time.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a high water mark. I mean, I can remember, early 2000s when the Pistons and Wings were both going deep, seemed every year. We thought they both had a chance to win their respective championships year after year. And I remember we would spend a lot of time figuring out how we were going to cover all this stuff from a TV station angle. But, at that point, 2006, the Tigers got competitive again. So you had all three kind of running there. And I think if you're talking about all four, I mean, it's been a while since we could say they were all kind of sitting there at a high water mark, because obviously in 2006, the Lions weren't doing particularly well. So, these are good times to be a Detroit sports fan.
Does the Red Wings and Pistons success right now take a little bit of the sting out of the Lions' loss to the Commanders in the divisional round?
I don't know. I mean, it gives you something else to think about for sure. I mean, it gives you something to look at. We haven't had a lot of exciting Aprils around here in a while. It's been a while since the Wings have been in the playoffs. Pistons dipped their toe in, and it wasn't great against Milwaukee. So I think it's just good that those teams stand on their own and can enjoy their success, and fans get to enjoy it. And we're seeing some, electric moments down at LCA, and I think that's great. Look, people are going to continue to be, I think, disappointed in the way things ended for the Lions and disappointed in the way that some things broke this season. But I think if you look at it and you step back, you say they're built for success. They're built to continue this thing. They'll come back next year. You look at how many times San Francisco's come back and how many times Philadelphia's come back and what they've been able to do year after year in Buffalo and different teams. So it's there's no reason to think that they can't be competitive again next year and be like they were this year, one of the top picks to maybe win it all. So I think it's great what the Pistons and Wings are doing. Sure, it probably takes your mind off it, but the NFL is a pretty big deal where I think people constantly are thinking about it. You got free agency coming up. You got the draft coming up after that. You got the combine going on now. So There's a lot to keep Lions fans engaged.
I was lucky enough last year in April to do media work for the NFL draft in Detroit, and I knew the Red Wings and the Pistons and Tigers and Michigan Wolverines were popular there. But I'll tell you this: the Detroit Lions, the way they're playing right now and how they've become competitive, I think this is obviously a Detroit Lions town. And just to see that many people on opening night, 275,000 fans, was just amazing.
Well, I think there's a couple things there. I think look, the draft is a massive event. It's one of the biggest events in sports all year because of what the NFL is, what that shield means, what it means to bring these college kids into the pros, and how much fans are locked into who they are, what they might bring, that they're the hope of the future. So the NFL draft has really just become this massive, massive event that is one of the biggest on the calendar in the entire year, NFL and everything else considered. And then I think, look, it's a baseball town too. It's a big baseball town. This is I really
Great
believe
sports
at the
town.
top it's the Tigers and Lions town. But we've seen what happens when the Wings start to roll. We've seen what happens when the Pistons start to roll. So to your point, it's a great sports town. I wouldn't necessarily say it's just an X town. I think all these sports find a way to thrive. But, I do believe that the NFL has reached a point where it's kind of hovering above the others. There's power in that shield. And I think that, the Tiger love just runs deep. Maybe it's the time of year where people can go out and get engaged and go to the ballpark, and it's on your TV every single night. But it's a special relationship that fans have with the Tigers as well.
I see a lot of similarities between Philadelphia and Detroit with the love of their sports teams and their passion and how much each team means to the city and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, Philadelphia is a rabid sports town. I mean, and Detroit is the same way. I think it's, I've never lived in Philadelphia. I can't speak from experience. I can only speak from watching it and from a distance as to what they are. But having lived in another place and then come here, you have great respect for the roots that Detroit fans have and the way that they run deep. And, I was from a very transient area in Washington, D.C., where people just kind of come and go. And I think here you root for the same teams that your parents rooted for and your grandparents rooted for. And there's something different about Detroit that just feels like it's where that passion comes from for these fans. And it's something they've had for a long time and something they're handing down to their kids. And it's a special place. And I've maintained for a long time, I think it's the best sports city in America, not just because we have all four major sports and we have rabid fans, but also because of what we have with Michigan and Michigan State, these major programs, one in Ann Arbor and one in East Lansing, where you have, major football programs and major basketball programs. And then we have Oakland U that'll dip their toe in, and UDM, same thing. And it's just, there's so much to choose from here. It's hard to find another major city that has both the passion and then the availability of all these other sports in it.
Absolutely, Dan. And what I was going to say is sports. What I was going to say, Dan, is sports also unifies everybody too. You know what I mean? It's just it brings everybody out no matter what, and it's just I think it's just a great way to get away from what's going on in the world right now. In the professional sports.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like that anywhere. I think there's a brotherhood when you have that shared passion for something, whether it's, a hockey team, a baseball team, a basketball team, a football team, a college, whatever it is. Those things pull people together, and they give you, look, I'm a lightning rod for people that want to talk about the Lions. And I can tell you it comes from all corners, young, old, male, female, whatever it is. People just love to be engaged, and it's much more pleasant when they're winning, obviously. But the shared experience that people have when they go to Ford Field on a Sunday or a Monday or a Saturday or whatever it is to see this team. And same thing with the Tigers when they're going well. That was, that stretch run last year was incredible. And you could feel the excitement coming from people that were going down to Comerica Park. So And I think we're going to get a lot of that here coming down the stretch with the Red Wings and the Pistons as well, as they try to, continue to the Pistons move up in the East and the Red Wings hang on to one of those playoff spots.
Hey, Dan, before we get into the Lions, I wanted to get your thoughts on the dynamic kickoff rule this year. And also, I guess the NFL is going to look at for 2025 the Hawkeye electronic system to measure first downs. I just wanted your quick thoughts on that.
Haven't seen the Hawkeye system yet to know how well it will work. I think if they can make it work, it's great. I think we, certainly should be at the point where we can gauge how far a football goes. I do think, as I kind of play this out in my mind, that there would be still questions. Is the knee down? Where's the football when the knee goes down? Things like that. It's not simply where the ball ends up and then you get a beep. It's about where's that knee? Where's that forearm? When's he down? So anything that makes it easier to get it right, I think is a good thing. And then, the kickoff rule, look, they took a stab at it. It didn't work because teams, I think, just finally decided it's not worth dropping it down at the 2-yard line and then trying to tackle them inside the 30. Some teams did that a lot. We saw Washington do that a lot. But for the most part, I think teams just said, we're going to kick it to the back of the end zone. We'll give you the 30-yard line. Because the average midseason, I think, was like the 28. So you were fighting for 2 yards and giving up the possibility of a long return for 2 yards on average. And I think teams just said that doesn't make any sense to us. So I think they'll look at it. Maybe they move it to the 35-yard line, make it a little more penal to kick it into the end zone or kick it through or not give a team a chance to return. Be interesting to see what they do if they want to keep grinding away at this thing to make the return a part of the game.
I'm a traditionalist. I love seeing kickoff returns as well. And one thing, Dan, covering the Toronto Argonauts of the CFL, there's some rules in the CFL I like over the NFL. And one thing I wish the NFL would look at is let the teams have one challenge per game to challenge a pass interference call.
Yeah, I do think that they're going to allow booth assist to be more involved in calls. I don't know what the complete list of that is. PI is a tough one because it is probably the most significant penalty that you get in terms of yardage in the NFL. So it's tough when you feel like they don't get it right or when you feel like they've missed something. And I don't know if that will come under the purview. I feel like that's something that they haven't wanted to really, once they looked at it and messed with it a little bit and looked at challenge rules, that's not something they wanted to go back on. But we'll see what comes out of it. Clearly, they're looking at everything right now that they might be able to utilize booth assist for. And I think booth assist this past year was good. And I think it gained momentum as the season went on. And I think it sped the game up, which is always a good thing.
All right. Well, Dan, I could get into some questions. What were your overall thoughts on this 2024 Detroit Lions record-setting regular season team, 15-2, and overcoming all those injuries, especially on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, regular season, it was terrific. I mean, you win 15 games. That doesn't happen very often in this league. And they were able to do that, and they were able to overcome a lot in doing that and win a big game against Minnesota with everything on the line to win the division and win a second straight division title. So I think, in terms of the regular season, that offense was setting records along the way. The defense held together as well as it could, but you could kind of see as the regular season was winding down, that Minnesota game aside, which I think was in some ways their quarterback having a bad night, that defense was showing cracks, and they were giving up over 30 points a game for the last 6 weeks or so. And that wasn't what they were doing earlier in the year. And I think it just caught up with them. And if you look at the playoff game, a leaky defense combined with an offense that's turning the ball over and another team that's playing really well is a really bad combination. It doesn't give you a chance to win very often. And they didn't really have a chance to get it done that night playing the way that they played. So I think there were a lot of good things that happened during the regular season, but probably a lot of lessons learned when they got to the postseason. Not that they didn't know them already, about taking care of the football and how important that is. And defensively, look, they need to get healthy. They need to get their guys back, and then they will add, and invariably there will be changes. So I think that defense will have something of a different look next year. Obviously, Carlton Davis is a big question mark, and they'll add some pieces on that defensive line.
How much of an impact will having Aiden Hutchinson back? And is there any possibility that the Lions could look at possibly trading for Miles Garrett from the Browns if they put him up?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you probably make the call and see what the price is if Cleveland ever decides they want to deal him. But look, it does impact a lot of what they have to do. They have a lot of young guys that they need to sign that they want to keep. And if you have Miles Garrett, even with 2 years remaining on his contract, probably wanting to reduce somewhere along the line, if you're paying him $35 million a year and you're on the way to paying Hutch $35 million a year, it just becomes problematic in terms of what you can afford to do. And I know people like to think the cap isn't real, and sometimes it's not, but there does come a point where you're up against it to the point where you're going to have to let some good guys go. And that's a decision that they'd have to make. So sure, I think it's a conversation. I think it's something that you explore. I don't think it's likely that that's something that they'll do. And I think Hutch will be ready to roll regular season. And, you know, you're getting back one of the best players in the NFL. So that's highly significant for this defense. And now they need to find more guys around him. And Aleem may not be ready to go beginning of the year. We'll have to wait and see. But they need more guys that can wreak some havoc up there along that defensive line to help Hutch out, to help Aleem out.
In your opinion, Dan, what areas of the defense do you feel that they could need to address? The linebackers, front four, or the secondary?
Yeah, I mean, I think the linebackers at this point are in a pretty good place. I think the if you look at the secondary, that cornerback spot, veteran Carlton Davis is up. He's already making $14 million a year, so probably going to be in the range of 15, 16, 17 million going forward. I don't know if they can afford that. They drafted Rakestraw in the second round last year. I think they really like him. I think he was obviously, as we now know, on his way to starting in week 2 had he not gotten hurt. So the question is, how comfortable are they moving forward with 2 second-year corners? I would think that they will add a veteran in there somewhere. Robertson is in the mix, whether he stays outside or plays nickel. But I think they'll add a veteran. Wouldn't be surprised if they drafted another one as well. So there'll be bodies added at the corner. I think the biggest thing they got to figure out is that defensive line where, you know, you've got guys up there that are free agents. Davenport was on a 1-year deal. Onzarique's a free agent. Pecco got hurt early. He's up as well. Pat O'Connor's up. So they need to add some bodies, make some decisions, and it can't just be, you know, rotational guys. They need to add an impact guy or two up there. And it doesn't have to be Myles Garrett, but it has to be somebody that can play a role for this team, in particular when you're talking about on the other side away from Aiden Hutchinson.
And as you saw with the Eagles this year, last year they had the 32nd defense in the National Football League, and they really addressed the defensive line, and obviously with Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. So it can be fixed in the offseason with a really good draft.
Well, I think Philadelphia has been drafting defensive players for a while, and you saw some of those guys just coming of age, and you really could see it as the regular season was winding down, that they were starting to figure it out. All those kids they drafted from Georgia and had been drafting for a couple of years now, that it was coming together for them. And it does take a while in this league for most guys to figure it out, and they did. And those draft picks were, you know, a big part of the reason they were able to win the Super Bowl. So it wasn't necessarily one off season. That was a number of off seasons that they had drafted players, worked with them, developed them, and then you could see kind of the fruits of that as the season went on. And I think that's ideally what teams do. That's what the Lions have done. They've drafted and developed players. They need to continue to do that. And you probably need a little more urgency with some of those guys up front in this offseason. What do you think about, okay, can we just draft somebody, or do we have to go out and get a veteran that's played in this league a little bit? I think it'll be a combination of both.
And the Eagles this year had a lot of things go right for them too, and especially with injuries. They had Brandon Graham out for a little bit, but overall they were fairly healthy, and that's always an X factor in football. Dan, is the injury factory and factor, and obviously the Lions don't want to use that as an excuse. But just how many guys were on injured reserve this year? Like 20 guys, I think. It was
Yeah,
just
they had a bunch, and it was guys that they thought were going to play impact snaps for them. I mean, Philadelphia, look, they had some injuries along the offensive line. They lost one of their linebackers late in the season, so they had some things they had to overcome as well. But they found a way to do it. They found a way to play their best football at the end of the year, and that's ultimately what you have to be doing. And clearly, the Lions didn't end the season playing their best football. That's one of the reasons they were watching, after that first game. So, yeah, there's some good fortune that has to come your way, but also you have to, continue to build and get better. And it just felt like that was an uphill climb for the Lions towards the end of the year.
sometimes you have to take a step back before you can reach that ultimate goal. And I feel the Lions are in good shape in 2025 and will still be one of the top teams in the NFC.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's no reason not to think that. I mean, that offense is coming back pretty much intact. We'll see what they do with the offensive line. But the playmakers and Jared and those guys are there, and obviously some changes in coaching, which will play a role. We'll see how that works out. But I still think they'll make some changes defensively to try to improve that thing because as Brad Holmes said the other day, the lack of a pass rusher and the lack of a pass rush is not being ignored. It's just a question of how can that need meet what you have available to go out and fix that thing.
Dan, just quick thoughts on the job that Dan Campbell did, keeping this team focused and hungry, and just thoughts on Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, their time in Detroit, and now obviously now becoming head coaches with the Jets and the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, Dan's best strength is, I think, hiring a staff. I mean, he's got a ton of them. It's hiring a staff, developing players, having players want to play for you. It's preparing players appropriately, mentally to get them ready to play a game. They don't stay down for long. I've said this stat a lot. They're the only team in the NFL that didn't lose. They've gone 2 years now without losing 2 games in a row. No other team in the league can say that. They haven't lost 2 games in a row since October of 2022. That goes to a head coach who doesn't let his team stay down for very long and knows how to get them ready to play coming off a loss or coming off a win, either of those. So he's the perfect guy for this team. He'd be the perfect guy for a lot of teams. Aaron Glenn did a nice job when he was here. He didn't have a lot of work to work with for most of his time in Detroit. And then when it looked like this year he was stacked, he lost a lot of those guys. So, Aaron Glenn really never felt like he was dealing with, a packed cupboard when he was the defensive coordinator here. But, they've been elite against the run for 2 years. They've done a great job. That's a great place to start with the defense. And I think that you can't say enough about the job he did just keeping them competitive at times. And then Ben Johnson built one of the best offenses in the NFL and a record-setting offense in the NFL. So nothing but praise for him. And we'll see how they both do as head coaches. This is, you go from being a coordinator to being a head coach. We've seen people do it and do it well. We've seen people take a stab at it and it doesn't go well. But they're both, I think, terrific leaders. They are both obviously people that teach the game well, and I think that's a great place to start.
And when your team is successful, wins a championship, or is consistently winning, this is what happens with coaching staffs, and that's a part of the game.
Yeah, I mean, look, didn't happen here for a long time because there wasn't a lot of success around here, but you're seeing it from the top to the bottom. You're seeing people from the front office getting taken over the past couple of years. You're seeing coaches getting taken for the past couple of years. I mean, look, we had runs where head coaches would leave Detroit and, never have a chance to be a head coach again. Now you're seeing, people being taken from Detroit and becoming head coaches. So as things change and the perception of your team changes and you're winning, obviously it changes is the way that people want a piece of that success. They want to try to emulate what you're doing. And the best way to do that, often people believe, is to pull a piece of that out and try to put them into your organization and let them do it there. Doesn't always work. So we will see what happens. And there's a lot more that goes into it than just how good Aaron Glenn is and how good Ben Johnson is. The Lions have a complete organization top to bottom. Question is, do the Bears have that? Do the Jets have that? That's still to be answered.
The foundation has been built in Detroit, and I feel your team, the Lions, will be competitive for a long time, as long as Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes are in there, and the ownership too. It all starts with the ownership all the way down.
Yeah, I mean, it started with Sheila before any of those guys were hired, when she
Yep.
decided what this organization was going to be and how they were going to operate and what a Detroit Lions front office would look like and what the players would look like and what a Detroit Lion was supposed to stand for. And I credit her for that. She's the one who really set the foundation for a collaborative unit, and that's what they've been ever since then.
Hey, Dan, do you have time for 2 quick questions and we'll
Sure.
wrap this up?
Sure.
Okay, Dan, just wanted to get your thoughts on Super Bowl 59 and seeing former Lion great Big Play Slay get a Super Bowl, and CJ Gardner Johnson seemed to fit in well with Philadelphia, and Michigan Wolverines alumni Brandon Graham getting his second ring.
Yeah, I mean, look, they knew what they were getting in CJ because he'd been there before. Darius is a great player. He's a great player and a guy that deserves all this success. He takes on the best player on the other team and has for years. We saw what he did here, and he's gone to Philadelphia, and he's continued to be one of the better players. And, you know, he's getting towards the end now. Who knows? Maybe he'll be back here for a season, which I wouldn't have a problem with. I think it'd be great. But he's a good locker room guy, fun guy to talk to. I think popular teammate. And I'm very happy for his success. It's cool to see people that you've covered, you know, get those rings. And Graham's a great story. I mean, you know, from the first Super Bowl he won, sacking Tom Brady, to this Super Bowl, being able to go in there and come back from a significant injury and be able to play in that game. That's just an amazing way to wrap up a career.
And if he does retire, I think he has a great career in broadcasting. I guess he's been doing some radio in Philadelphia. So if he does decide to hang it up, I think I can see him being on TV and radio.
Sure. It's a lot easier way to make a living than to get your head, you know, bashed in every week and go out there and try to hit quarterbacks and running backs. It's more fun to just sit and watch. And look, he's earned his stripes, and guys like that carry name recognition and name value. And I'm sure he will get a crack at doing some things, because I think he's carved out not just a niche as a terrific football player, but a good person. And people like to have people like Brandon Graham representing their organization. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him get opportunities if he decides that's what he wants to do next.
And finally, Dan, this shall be your 20th year as the Detroit Lions play-by-play announcer. What have been some of your most memorable games? And 20 years, that's hard to believe. And how did you come about the Lions job again?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, that used to be a harder question than it is now. I think the easy game for me is that Rams playoff game, just because of what it meant, never having had a playoff game at Ford Field, not having won a playoff game in 30 plus years, one game since 1957, Jared going against his former team, Matthew coming back, all the ties between the two organizations, the incredible electricity in downtown Detroit that night, seeing that building full 2 hours before the game, and the Jared Goff chants, you know, for 90 minutes before the game. That, it'd be hard for anything to touch that until we get to that big one, because just the release that it allowed people, all of the years of frustration and gut punches that they'd had, to finally be able to win that game and enjoy that was pretty incredible. And it's easy now. Like I said, if you'd asked me that before that game, there might have been some five games that I'd thrown at you, but that game really now for me stands alone.
And I'm hoping next year. Obviously, the Lions are playing the Eagles, but I'm hoping that we can meet up in the playoffs for the first time since 1995. It's been a long time, but it's a long season, and it's going to be a tough season, I guess, for the Eagles and the Lions because they're going to have tough opponents. And I'm just really looking forward to a Detroit Philly matchup next year. Not sure when it's going to happen, but it's going to be a really great matchup.
Might be opening night. You never know. We'll have to wait and see. But it's, look, it's you're starting over. You have to earn it all
Yeah.
again. And these are two teams that are equipped to do that, but you got to go out and do it on the field. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think they are two teams that you can expect to be right in there again at the end.
And finally, Dan, where can my audience follow you on social media and on Fox 2 Detroit?
Yep, fox2detroit.com. You can click the live button and watch our newscasts, or Dan Miller Fox 2 is my X handle, and we're on there most of the time just having fun and, talking football or whatever might be going on in Detroit at that moment. So that's about it for me in social media. That's probably more than enough.
There's so many of it, and it's a full-time job being on social media. But anyways, Dan, I'm going to let you go, but continued success with Fox 2 Detroit, and I'm hoping to get down to Detroit and Philadelphia next year to cover the Eagles and Lions. And I'm looking forward to this Red Wings team. I guess they're playing Columbus right now, and then the
Yep,
Pistons go for 9 in a row, I believe, tomorrow night against the Denver Nuggets, which should
correct.
be a great game as well.
Yeah, it's exciting times around here. They got to keep it going because it's there's not much margin there for either team. But Pistons are building a nice little cushion there in the sixth spot, hoping to get to 5. So we'll see what happens.
And please say hi to Jennifer Hammond for me. I finally had her on my show a few weeks ago, and I really enjoyed Jen Hammond coming on my show as well.
You got it. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Dan. Have a great night.
You too.
All right, guys, that was Dan Miller, the voice of the Detroit Lions on 97.1 The Ticket in Detroit, and he's also the sports director with Fox 2 in Detroit. So I want to say thank you to Dan Miller for coming on season 10, episode 7 tonight of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show to talk about the Detroit Lions. And before we wrap up this show, guys, I have a little clip from YouTube, and since it's a Detroit Lions theme, I figured we play their Gridiron Heroes official fight song of the Detroit Lions to honor Dan Miller and for those Detroit Lion fans watching this show tonight.
Forward down the field, a charging team that will not yield, and win the blue and silver way. And then to the brave, rah, 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 go hard, win the game. With honor you will keep your fame. Down the field and gang.
And that was courtesy of Gridiron Heroes, Cyril Gridiron on the YouTube channel. Please subscribe to his channel as well. And again, thank you to Dan Miller from Fox 2 Detroit and the voice of the Detroit Lions on 97.1 The Ticket. This will be Dan's 20th year coming up as the radio voice of the Detroit Lions. And even though the Detroit Lions had a setback losing to Washington in the divisional round, the Detroit Lions are built for long-term success, and they should be a contender in the NFC next year, along with the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles as well. And speaking of NFL, the NFL Combine this weekend, February 27th today until March 2nd. And the CFL Combine is tomorrow in Waterloo, Ontario as well. So we're not that far away from football again. The NFL mini training camps start up in May. The NFL draft is in April, and the CFL has their combine tomorrow, and also their drafts coming up, I believe, in March or April. And then training camp for the Canadian Football League starts in May as well. Before we wrap this show up, guys, just want to make a little announcement here. The Massasauga Imports will be joining Wellington Brewery on March 12th at 7 p.m. for a Lizards and Loggers interactive reptile show. This all ages event at Wellington Brewery brings some of the world's coolest reptiles right here to your local tap room at 950 Woodlawn Road West here in Guelph, Ontario, where you can enjoy some brews, beers, while getting to hold, pet, and learn all about different species. What are you waiting for? Bring your kids, bring your friends, get together and come have some fun at Wellington Brewery during the March break. Tickets are available. You can get them, I believe, through the link on their Instagram page bio. And also, you can follow Wellington Brewery on Eventbrite. P.S. Adult tickets include a pint of beer, just for your information. And I have some news here too. Wellington Brewery has been a sponsor of my show for the last 4 months. And right now we're going to be pausing it for a little while. But I want to say thank you to Jackie Hanna and to Wellington Brewery for being a sponsor of Live with CDP's Sports Entertainment Talk Show for the last 4 months. And hopefully we can partner up with Wellington Brewery again in the future. And Wellington Brewery is proudly Canadian, and they're one of Canada's oldest local craft breweries, founded in 1985. So please support Wellington Brewery. Check out their website, wellingtonbrewery.ca. Try a Wellion, and please remember to drink responsibly. And check out Wellington Brewery. They have a lot of great beer selection, IPA beers, lagers, ales. And I just, again, want to say thank you to Wellington Brewery for being a sponsor of my show for the last 4 months, and please support them. They're a Canadian business, just like Barry Cullen Chevrolet here in Guelph. Barry Cullen Chevrolet dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in Guelph, Ontario. Check out their website, barrycullen.com, for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, along with all-electric vehicles and their Cadillac vehicles as well. You can call them at 519-824-0210 or email them at info@barrycullen.com. And they've been family run and operated here in Guelph since 1969. So Barry Cullen Chevrolet, Wellington Brewery, please check them out and support local Canadian businesses as well. The next Live with CDP Sports Entertainment Talk Show, sponsored by barrycullen.com, is going to be on Monday, March 3rd at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, with my special guest, his first appearance, and he's a friend of mine. His name is Brent Carty. He is the host of the semi-retired Carty Show podcast from 2014 to 2024. And Brent Carty is a former writer for the Blue Jays Journal, former writer and podcaster for Baseball Hot Corner, and he's an up-and-coming author, hopefully in 2027. He's a sports enthusiastic and politics enthusiastic as well. So Brent's going to come on and talk about his podcasting career, media career, and we're probably going to talk to Brent a little bit about the upcoming Major League Baseball season, the Toronto Blue Jays, and also the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, which Brent is a part of, along with me, and we'll be there in June 14th, 2025 this summer to see Jose Bautista and the class of 2025 introduced into the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. So check out Live with CDP Sports Entertainment Talk Show, Season 10, Episode 8, this Monday, March 3rd, 7:30, with my friend and first-time guest, Brent Carty, on as well. Before we wrap up this show, guys, as always, you guys can now follow me on Blue Sky at Live with CDP 19 at Blue Sky Social. I am just joined there as well. If you're looking to adopt a pet, sorry about that error right there. Okay. If you guys are looking to adopt a pet, check out the Cambridge and District Humane Society at 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, Ontario. Telephone number 519-623-7722, extension 0, or visit their website, cambridgehumanesociety.org. All the animals and pets up for adoption, their profiles are on cambridgehumanesociety.org. And if you're looking to volunteer like myself, you can fill out a volunteer form through cambridgehumanesociety.org. And also they're doing a quarterly 50-50 draw too. Half the money goes to the Humane Society, the half goes to the winner. You can buy tickets on their website, cambridgehumanesociety.org. Click on events and help support the work they do for our homeless furry friends down at the Cambridge Humane Society. And right now at the Cambridge Humane Society, they're looking for industrial-sized garbage bags, and towels. So who's ever watching this show live stream in Guelph, Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge, the Cambridge District Humane Society needs some industrial-sized garbage bags, and they also need towels down at the Cambridge Humane Society. And they also have an emergency pet fund for people who are in financial straits. So if you have some cat food, dog food that you would like to donate to their pet emergency pet fund, please check out the Cambridge District Humane Society. Pop by 1650 Dunbar Road in 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, Ontario. Finally, guys, Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show is live streamed on these platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, X, Twitch, LinkedIn, and now available on Instagram. And please remember to follow me there as well. You can check out my website, beacons.ai/Chris D. Pomay. Also, guys, you can follow me on TikTok. Yes, I am back on TikTok. Unfortunately, I lost my 5-year-old page on TikTok a couple weeks ago. I won't get into it, long story, but I am back on TikTok. You can follow me there now at Chris Pomay, and make sure you hit follow. I produce a lot of content on TikTok. So the only advice I would say to you guys is just stay out of the political stuff and just focus on what you like to do and create content stuff. So I'm glad to be back on TikTok at Chris Pomay, and I'm trying to build my followers up so I can go live there again as well. StreamYard is the official live stream provider of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. If you're into webinars or podcasting, check out StreamYard.com. They have basic free plans, or they have paid professional plans like I have. And if you're a business that does a lot of live streaming or webinars, StreamYard.com, and contact their sales department as well. I've been with StreamYard now for over 4 years, thanks to Jamie Pagley, the Philly sports guy, who told me about StreamYard just over 4 years ago. So check them out for your live stream services. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, the audio versions on these platforms: iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify for podcasters, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Spotify, Castbox, LinkedIn, Pandora, Tuned In, YouTube Music, and Good Pods. And remember to hit subscribe and like as well. Finally, guys, you can email the show, Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, at cpomay19@gmail.com. Any comments, questions, suggestions, feedback would be greatly appreciated. And if you'd also like to contribute to my radio and talk show and media work, I'm on PayPal at cpomay19@gmail.com. And also, if you'd like a personalized video from yours truly, I am a part of the Cameo family. Check out cameo.com, and type in Chris Pomay and book your Cameo today. And finally, you guys can find me on all social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, X. I'm also on Instagram. I'm on Threads. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Blue Sky. And also, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Chris Pomay, Live with CDP Sports Talk. Hit the subscribe and like notification. And I want to say thank you to my 555 subscribers. And thank you to my 330,000 viewers on YouTube as well. And that's about it, guys. I've had a busy week. I've had 5 shows in 4 days with 6 different guests. And I want to say thank you again to Dan Miller from Fox 2 Detroit, sports anchor, sports director, and the longtime play-by-play voice of the Detroit Lions, for coming on Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show as well. And I want to say thank you to everyone watching this live stream and on my audio platforms. And also, I am looking for more local businesses to sponsor my show. If you are a local business that would like to advertise on Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, the Small Talk Podcast, or the Argo Bounce Podcast Show, email me at cpomay19@gmail.com, or contact me on my social media pages. I am looking for more businesses and companies to come aboard, and my prices are very reasonable as well. And if anybody out there is looking to start their own podcast show, If you'd like some help in that, I'd be glad to help you out for a small fee. You can email me at cpomay19@gmail.com as well. And again, I want to say thank you again to Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership for being a part of this show for the last 2.5 years. And again, thank you to Wellington Brewery for coming aboard for 4 months. And please support them. Again, check out their website, wellingtonbrewery.ca, or pop by the real retail store at 950 Woodlawn Row West in Guelph. And please remember to support Canadian businesses as well, and local. Support Canadian and support local businesses as well. So that's about it, guys. 5 shows in 4 days, and I've been very lucky to have so many great guests over my 502 episodes. And I'm looking forward to next week. I got Brent Carty Monday at 7:30, and I'm also working on some more special guests for next week as well. And before I wrap this up, guys, the National Lacrosse League action Friday night, 7 o'clock. Georgia Swarm, Ottawa Black Bears, 7 o'clock TSN with Matt Cullen, Pat Gregor, and Ashley Dawkin. And the game of the week to me is Saturday night, 9 o'clock Eastern, 7 Mountain Standard Time, when the Buffalo Bandits, 8-1 back-to-back NLL champs, take on Saskatchewan Rush, who are 9-2. You can watch that game on CW23 in Buffalo, ESPN Plus in the States, and NLL Plus online here in Canada, or you can listen to it on 1520 The Bet in Buffalo with John Gerkler, the longtime voice of the Buffalo Bandits. So lots of sports going on this weekend. Tonight we got the Red Wings in Columbus. Last count, it was 1-1 in the second period at Little Caesars Arena. The Red Wings are 9-1-1 in their last 11 games, and 17-4-2 for the Red Wings, the best record in the NHL since December 29th. And the Detroit Pistons are 22-9 in the last 31 games, and the Pistons have now won 8 in a row for the first time since 2008. I was only 36 years old the last time they won 8 in a row. So as for a sports fan, you're a Detroit Pistons fan, Red Wings fan, Tigers fan, Detroit Lion fan, it looks really good with Detroit teams right now. And Pistons are back home at Little Caesars Arena Friday night to take on the Nuggets as well. And the Tigers are in spring training down in Lakeland as well. So it's a great time of the year, obviously, for the NHL, for the NBA, and for the start of Major League Baseball as well. And again, the NFL Combine is this weekend up until March 2nd, and then the NFL Draft is in April as well.